only am I a proud AMC A-lister, but I'm also an AMC investor. So sometimes I get perks. For example, 2 months ago, they offered us a ranch flavored popcorn, to which I said, no thank you. And then this month they gave us AMC Cinema Sweets Premium Gourmet Candy. And we could choose between 4 flavors: peanuts, raisins, almonds, and pretzels. Although I'm not really a fan of almonds in general, so I completely forgot that those were a thing before researching, just to make sure that there was not 3 but 4 flavors. I've got the pretzels, which were covered in dark chocolate. The rest were covered in milk chocolate. I said it's free. It's delicious. And yo, those AMC dark chocolate covered pretzels were amazing. And I'm not really that much of a fan of chocolate. I like pretzels, but yo, it was really gourmet candy. But anyway, the movie begins and it's the AMC Screen Unseen yet again, because I love going to those, man. If you haven't gone to one, I suggest you do. It's only $5 if you're not an AMC A-lister. It's inexpensive and it's always it's mostly a fun time. Well, my friend's guess was Irene's Vow and my guess was The Challengers, but we were both wrong because the movie ended up being The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And everyone in my theater was like, ooh, yes, we knew we were in for a good time. It's honestly moments like these in the movie theaters that really make theater going a great experience, when everyone can collectively enjoy the experience at hand as a whole. It's honest, I mean, it's a good time. A few movies last year that I remember going just either by myself or with friends. The Little Mermaid was a great time. The Haunted Mansion was a good time. The Barbie movie, Oppenheimer, all of these movies were a great time because everyone in the movie theater, we all wanted to have a good time, and a good time we did. For example, a phone rang towards the beginning of the movie and an older gentleman had just walked in and he had forgotten to silence his cell phone, as you know one does. It's no big deal, it's an elderly man. Gotta give him a little bit more time because of he's an elder, to silence his cell phone, but right as the phone started ringing, everyone in the actual film, as if they knew, paused because that was part of the actual exchange going on in the movie, and then they started laughing in the movie because that was part of the exchange in the movie, and then the comments they made, because again, as part of the exchange in the movie, seemed to have fit with what was happening with the older gentleman, and it was great. Everybody laughed, including the older man. It was a really fun time. Honestly, my favorite thing about this whole experience is that these few girls behind us would audibly swoon every time Alan Ritchson or Henry Cavill did anything manly in the film, which is basically exist. And for good reason, too. Alan Ritchson, man, he does an outstanding job in this film. He said, I got jacked for Reacher. Give me the smallest side shirt you can find. Daddy showing off his guns. And man, that dude is massive. However, of course, I related to Henry Cavill's carefree, childlike approach to negotiations and life, and his character in general. I very much relate to the chaoticness of Gus March Phillips. I plan to be that unhinged by the time I am 33. Now let's talk about the actual movie. Listen, I'm not the best with history. I know what I know, and I do my research on what I need to know. But what I didn't know was this one. Normally I know at least something, but Operation Postmaster, that kind of under my radar mostly. I knew that there was uncovered declassified files from Winston Churchill's desk, and that the recent revelations of said files, but I didn't really catch wind of it at that time, so forgive me for not knowing how this movie would end exactly. I had a guess, seeing as we won the war, and I do know about that one, all about that one. So needless to say, I had no idea that this was going to be a historical film. I just thought, it's a fun one. I mean, I'm not wrong, it is a fun one. But I think that this movie is not just a fun movie, it's a riot of a good time. I think that people are probably going to pick this movie apart, mainly because that's what you do nowadays. Nowadays, you can't appreciate just having a fun time at the movie theater, watching a completely unhinged film with your friends. and strangers. One comparison I am seeing from those who have seen the movie is that this reminds them of a good Kingsman movie, which makes me feel good and bad for Guy Ritchie, who directed the movie, because he certainly doesn't want to be known as the other Matthew Vaughn or the other Kingsman guy. But it's good that this movie is being compared to the good Kingsman movie, being the first Kingsman movie, and not the Kingsman which I didn't see, or the Golden Circle which I liked, or Argyle which I did not. Either way, that's a big compliment, and one that is definitely deserving because this movie does. Either way, that is a big compliment, and one that is deserving because this movie definitely has that Kingsman vibe, only because of the rapidness of the movie, the pace. Not just pacing, but just everything in the movie is just rapid, but it makes sense. A little bit. This movie is 2 hours and 11 minutes long, including credits, and boy do you feel it. This movie does begin to slow down a little too much towards the end of the second act, but it does very quickly pick itself right back up, and once that action starts, it just kicks into high gear, man. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop until it decides it wants to stop, and you will never know when it wants to stop, because you, at some point, you're like, okay, it stopped, but it's not stopped, and you're just gonna sit there thinking, when is it gonna stop? I don't want it to stop because it's so much fun. And it's not that it's just fun, it's clever. Mainly because this stuff actually happened in real life, so to me, I am doubly impressed because this actually happened. But anytime there's action in this film, pay attention. I haven't seen a film where the choices the characters make in fighting and in killing, that speaks a lot about them as individuals. For example, no spoilers, there's one very quick shot of a character who looks at his hand and he's holding a gun, and then he makes the effort to pull out a knife and stab the enemy who is already wounded and down. And my friend was just like, yeah, what the heck? Yeah, you had a gun in your hand. And I said, I think that's the point. There are so many bold choices for our characters that, again, speak on the psychology of these individuals as people who have been through what they have been through. And I kind of had to give them, that they had to pay attention to that much detail in the writing. That's pretty cool. I can just see people making a big fuss over the tone of this movie. I hadn't really realized that this movie actually doesn't necessarily have a consistent tone throughout. It does in a way. It has a base tone, and then that tone adds other elements of genres on top of it. You see, in essence, this movie is a Western. I know, who would have thought to make a Western style movie set in 1942? I didn't, but Guy Ritchie did. Honestly, brilliant. The style and tonality of the whole film. I digress. The movie effortlessly mixes elements from other genres, such as the spy genre, and it even fully turns into a heist film for a brief bit, but it works. What's more is that this film is surprisingly funny and upbeat, but it knows how to be tense and suspenseful when it needs to be. Again, I can see people saying that this movie is going to be tonally all over the place, but I argue that it is not. It just has a base tone of Western. It's filmed one way, like a Western, but again, it adds the things that it needs from other genres to emphasize those moments. And it works. We're watching a historical movie with a genre, and I think that's brilliant. I will say that the acting from some of the supporting cast, in my opinion, was just a little weak. I don't know if those were choices, and I do know that Churchill talked really weirdly, but I think I would have chosen a better Churchill. The rest of the cast is pretty much amazing. Nothing but cuties and beauties, as they would say back then, but this time it's men. So much muscles. Overall, Guy Ritchie delivers a super fun ride that deserves to be viewed in the theaters, but this is definitely one that you're gonna want to take some snacks and drinks for, as that made my viewing experience that much better, and I'm sure it's gonna make yours even much better. The grammar police are gonna get me. If you have an AMC that sells alcoholic beverages, I say go for it! Treat yourself! Get that icy, get that candy, have a good time. I give the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare a 9.2 out of 10. I definitely enjoyed this one. Once again, I don't think it's gonna be everyone's hit just because Maybe y'all will be way more nitpicky, but I certainly had a great time watching this one. So much so that I would definitely watch it again. Once again, I see the issues, but they're not really prevalent, and there's not even a lot that would make this movie go down any less than the 9.2. Maybe 9.1, but I'm confident in my 9.2. Let me know what your thoughts are if you've seen it. If you haven't, go! My social media links are in the description below, and I will see you next time. You've just been Montified.